Hello class and welcome back. This particular module is on leads review. At this point now, you've had an opportunity to write 2 or 3 leads. You read the information about leads and the importance of leads. Again, as a review and as a refresher, so you should be looking at the leads review module of lecture slides. And I am now moving to slide 2, but you should be in the leads review module lecture slides. And what we're going to do is just do a little review of leads. And some of the common mistakes and issues that often happens with writing leads, especially for the first time. Again, as a reminder, leads and hard news stories, and that's what you'll be doing here in this course, hard news summary lead stories, summary leads, are one sentence, only one sentence, no longer, no more than that. One sentence, that is the lead. In news stories, a sentence can be a paragraph. Oftentimes it is. Most paragraphs in a news story is 1 to 2 sentences only. There's most of them usually are one sentence. So I ask you to go look at newspapers, look at Dallas Morning News, look at other newspapers, Washington Post, New York Times, and get a feel for those news stories and how they're shaped and set up. Remember the lead. It's the most important sentence, paragraph in your news story or news release. It is supposed to answer as much of the 5 W's and the H as much as possible. Some of the things that I saw in the leads that people trying to write 2 or 3 sentences to encompass the lead. Some are writing the lead like it's a headline. It's not a headline. It's part of the news story. We're not writing headlines right now. We're doing just the news story. You're working on the first sentence, the first paragraph in your news story. And so it should be one sentence. It should contain 30 words or less, no more than 30 words. There are some newspapers and institutions where it's 20 words or less. But across the board, generally, it's 30 words or less. So remember that 30 words or less, one sentence only. Those are the easy things that you should not be making mistakes and errors on when you get to the leads bridges, the next exercise that will be posted on Moodle. So make sure that you do not have a lead longer than 30 words, and it should only be one sentence, and you're trying to answer the 5 W's and the H. Now, it can be often difficult to determine when you have a set of facts the W's and the H, the who, what, when, where, why, and the how. And again, oftentimes you may not be able to get the why, you may not be able to get the how, but you should be able to get most of the what, who, when, and where in your lead. It should all be in that sentence lead. There's no and there's no subjectivity. You're supposed to be objective. So put none of your opinions or biases in the news story. You're not writing an English paper. You're not writing right now. We're not doing feature stories, so we're not looking for flair and nice adjectives and words. It's just a hard news story. Simple words, concise, and to the point. Some of you could think of it as a tweet. A tweet is what basically is the lead when you're trying to tell someone in 140 characters of who, what, where, when, what's going on. But in a news story, obviously, you have to write out your words as to be grammatically correct sentence. The shorter the sentence, the better, as long as you can answer all the W's and H's. If you only have 15 words and you haven't answered all the W's and H's, I'm quite sure that you could go back and there's more you can add to that lead. Again, the lead is the first paragraph in the story. It's the most important thing. It tells the most important facts up front because we do an inverted pyramid style writing in journalism. Reminder again, we tell the most important facts up front and it's inverted, and we tell, as we go down, we tell the least amount of information. So it goes from the most important to the least amount. So as you read through a news story, the first paragraph is the most important, then the second one is the second most important, the third one, and then the other facts start to fall in that order going down. So that the bottom part of your story, there's not a whole lot of important facts because you've told most of it up front, and that's how it should be, and that's how you should work through your news story. So you should be developing that. So when you get your fact pattern, and you will have some of those in the next exercise, when you see that fact pattern of information in the paragraph, pick out. It's easy to write on the side. Who's the who? Who's the what? The where? The when? The how? The why in this fact pattern? And then you craft that first sentence. That's why we spent so much time. I've spent the last 3 or 4 weeks letting this soak in first, letting you do the exercises. The lead is the most important. If you don't get this, it's going to be difficult to write the second paragraph, which is called the bridge, and the rest of the story. So please now move to slide 4. Again, we're looking at the leads review. I'm going to talk about the issues about the leads review one more time to make sure you have it. On slide 5, I know we talk about keeping it short. Now, I'm not talking about the one word dead. That's a little too short, um, but it still should be able to, we're looking at answering the information as quickly as possible. So here on slide 6, this is an example of what we call the impersonal who in a lead. The impersonal who can be where you're not actually giving the name of a person, but you're giving who they are, what they do, how they're important to the story. So instead of saying, John Green, police officer, you would say a police officer today arrested 3 people. So that not saying the person's name is kind of the impersonal who. So who did what? The police officer arrested someone. And so it's called the impersonal who as opposed to just the regular who. Sometimes in a lead, the emphasis will be an impersonal who. It might work better than the have the actual name of the person in the lead. You can put the name of the who in the bridge sometimes, which is the second sentence or paragraph in a news story. So here you have the Defense Language Institute student discovered an unpublished John Steinbeck manuscript worth an estimated $500,000 here on whatever day with the date week on here on Sunday, and a box of books purchased in Salinas for $15. Here in this lead, you do not have the name of the Defense Language Institute student. You only have that it was a Defense Language Institute student. This is what we call the impersonal who. You do this in some ways because the most important thing is he discovered an unpublished John Steinbeck manuscript that he purchased that was worth $500,000. So the prominent who here is really the John Steinbeck manuscript. So that's where you want to have that more as the lead, as opposed to who cares that John Smith found this. It's that somebody did, but the real thing was the manuscript. So that's where you really go with the most important thing. Sometimes it's difficult to try to figure out what is more important when it comes to impersonal who, but that's what the impersonal who really means, and that's what they talk about when it says that. And you notice, like on slide 7, there's more than one way to do leads. Here's another way to do the same lead based on the same issue. An estimated $500,000 of unpublished John Steinbeck manuscript was discovered Sunday by a student with the Defense Language Institute after he purchased a box of books in Salinas for $15 Saturday. So this one, remember the who we did, or the what, actually now the what is more of the lead emphasis in this. What happened? This was a manuscript that was bought at an estimated $500,000 and he got it for $15. So we kind of did the lead emphasis more of with the what. This is how you can change different leads. So when you were writing your leads the first time, and you're going to be doing it in the next exercise, the leads bridges exercise, there's different ways you can write the lead. There's no one exact answer for most leads. Most leads, there's at least 2 to 3 ways you can write it. So that's when I go through your leads, I can look at it and there's different ways you can write it. It can be correct in 2 or 3 different ways. That's the good thing about news writing. It's not like math where that's the only one answer and there's no other answer. With writing leads based on a fact pattern, it could be different ways. That's the beauty of creative writing. But as long as you're answering those, you can have your lead emphasis be the who, your lead emphasis be the what. Sometimes your lead emphasis is the where in a story. It just depends on the news and the fact patterns. On slide 8, we have another example of a lead emphasis. The lead emphasis is is that the Post Dining Facility won an award. So the college's dining facility was awarded the Conley Award for the 3rd time in 5 years here Sunday for being the best dining facility in the state. So you kind of had more up of the lead emphasis about the dining facility winning something, and it was winning the Conley Award. So it gives enough of your readers so they can understand the significance of what was happening. So that's why the lead, the first sentence, the first paragraph of this news story is a good way to start it off this way, about the news about the facility and winning the award and winning it for the 3rd time in 5 years and being the best in the state. Another example, well, again, looking at it in a different way, the same award, you could write it. The Paul Quinn College Dining Facility was named best in the state here for the 3rd time in 5 years. So this is a little bit different twist on that same fact pattern for the lead. So instead of using the Conley Award as kind of the lead emphasis, it's now Paul Quinn College, the college more so as the lead emphasis to make it more prominent for the college. So there's two different ways. This way here, you could have written that lead for that particular fact pattern. So for slide 9, we have a medal, and I decided we put a military in here, the military type of lead. The Air Medal was awarded here to a 307th Fighter Squadron F-16 Falcon pilot for guiding his jet plane in June to an unpopulated area near Bitburg before bailing out. So here the emphasis, considering that this would appear in probably a military newspaper, the Airman's Award is a high decoration, so it's easily recognizable by a majority of the military readers. So note you have the simple subject, verb, object construction of the lead. You have the impersonal who, the pilot, because they never named the pilot in the lead, so that's what we call the impersonal who. So you have the impersonal who in the lead, because that was the pilot. You have his job title and organization. So you let know what organization he's coming from, his title, but you really never had his name. Now, of course, the next paragraph, you could have his name in that, and that would be called the bridge. So note expanding the lead, past the who, what, when, where, facts to include some of the why element. Why he guided his jet to an unpopulated area. This is how you can have a why in the lead. That's why he got the medal, because he guided his jet to an unpopulated area, basically where it crashed and he bailed out. So this is where you have a who, the impersonal who, what, the medal, when, and in June, and where. And then he was able to add in the why. So the where was Bitburg, and then the why was because he bailed out his plane. Slide 11 is an example where you have the impersonal who that works as the lead emphasis. And when we say the lead emphasis, it means that's the particular W or H you're using at the beginning or the most important part of your lead. So this way, the lead is changed a little bit to a 307th Fighter Squadron pilot received the Air Medal here Sunday for guiding his malfunctioning F-16 Falcon to an unpopulated area near Bitburg before it crashed in June 2002. So we have this particular lead with the impersonal who starting out first, didn't really name the person or the actual pilot, but we just used his title or job or what he does, where he's from. That's the impersonal who. So this part, it's not a bad lead. It's a good lead. You can see that you can do the formulas a little different. You can the lead begins with the who or the what as an emphasis. So it depends on how you want to set up your formula or how you want to do your particular lead. That's the creativeness you have in it. Here's another lead on slide 12. Another example. Construction is scheduled to begin here Sunday on a 1.3 million, 19,000 square foot dormitory to replace the old dormitory, which was heavily damaged during a fire in 2015. You notice the word in here, here. It didn't say Paul Quinn College. It didn't say UTA. It didn't say the hospital or anything like that. When you're writing for a particular organization, so say you're writing for Paul Quinn College's newspaper, student newspaper. Well, if you're writing in that newspaper, you are already talking about here. You're already here, so you don't have to literally say construction is scheduled to begin at Paul Quinn College. We know you're at Paul Quinn College because it's the Paul Quinn College's paper. So you can just say here in a lead, and that's just fine. It's a little odd for people at first to get used to that, but you're able to do that, and that's absolutely 100% correct if you do that for your organization. If you work for a company, you could actually say construction scheduled to begin here. If you work for IBM, you don't actually have to say construction scheduled to begin at IBM. You can say construction is scheduled to begin here because you're right. You're sending out a news release from the IBM headquarters. It makes sense. So that's just another way of letting you see that, but that's a good lead as well written there for the dormitory. On slide 13, again, another lead. This one's about a race. So a Paul Quinn College sophomore biology major won the school's annual bike race Sunday by bicycling to the top of 14,110-foot Pikes Peak in 2 hours, 14 minutes, and 3 seconds. Very strong lead, used up all the 30 words there. But again, you did an impersonal who. We started off with actually it was starting off with Paul Quinn College, the location, and then the sophomore biology major. So it was the impersonal who started off with to let you know. It was what was it and where. So it was a good story, a good lead. That's another good lead example. Slide 14. Now we're kind of shifting a little bit. So now you should have a better handle on writing leads. Go back and look at your first leads exercise. I try to write comments for different ones based on what your responses were to those leads. Review these slides, review the leads, review the reading. I also have a handout. It's a one-page handout that's posted about leads. Read that. You have to get the leads down in order to move to the rest of the news story. That's why I kind of start off a little slower. I want to work with everyone to make sure I get you to where you need to be to write the rest of the story. So now I did a review of the leads again, the who, what, where, when, why, how to do them, how to shape them. Here's a new lead on slide 14 about the laundromat. Remember, it's one sentence, first paragraph in a news story. The second sentence is the bridge. And it's the bridge because you're bridging to the rest of the news story. So the bridge will have any other important information of the W's, H, the 5 W's and the H that you were not able to answer in your lead. Because sometimes there's so many facts to the story that you can't necessarily answer everything in that first sentence. You try to as much as you can for the 5 W's and the H, but then that's why you have the bridge, which is the second paragraph, to answer the rest. So here we have the lead about the laundromat on slide 14. A Highland Hills man smashed a glass door on a laundromat washing machine and yanked a 3-year-old from the swirling waters yesterday morning. So that's the lead. The lead started off as an impersonal who. It didn't say what man, it just says a Highland Hills man, that he's from Highland Hills. And it's talk about what he did, and it was at a laundromat, and so some of the why. So the second paragraph, since you didn't get all of that in your lead, you didn't start with his name in the lead. Sometimes the impersonal who is better. That's what we did here, this lead. So in the second paragraph, you go right to it and you say the name. Sammy A. Smithers, 27, rescued Tammy D. Childers after she climbed into a washing machine and the machine started running. The child had some cuts and bruises and was listed in good condition at Lancaster Hospital. Here you have 3 sentences, and these 3 sentences basically tell you almost everything you need to know about the news story, about what happened. Now, the rest of the story, if you started to write a couple more paragraphs, you may talk about maybe issues that were happening at the laundromat and maybe where her mother was and things like that. But the most important thing was who rescued the child, who the child was, where it was at, why it happened, and how it happened, and kind of showed the condition of the child. So it answered all these questions in the first 3 sentences. And then you begin to tell the rest. So if you were writing a news story and it had about 8, 9 paragraphs, which means 8 or 9 sentences, because each sentence may be a paragraph in itself, you would not put at the bottom, the child had some cuts and bruises and was listed in good condition at Lancaster Hospital, because people will be reading the story asking, well, what's happened to the child? Where is the child? You want that information up front. So this is a good one where it shows the lead, and then the second sentence paragraph, the bridge. Slide 15, here's something about heart. The American Heart Association now offers a cookbook specifically designed to encourage children to discover the wonderful world of cooking and to develop healthy eating habits early in life. So this is a different way of setting up where you're kind of doing more of a featurist-like PR type newsletter. A lead, the first sentence. And so if you go on to slide 16, the last part, remember as a review again, the elements. Who, what, when, where, why, how. Answer those in your lead as much as you can, as it makes sense. You may have a lead emphasis of the who. You may have a lead emphasis meaning starting off with the what. You may have an impersonal who where you don't actually name a person, but you name what they do or who they are in that way, and then you follow up in the bridge with their name. You may start off with the where of an issue. It's all based upon those news values we talked about in the first module. Based upon what is the news story you're covering, what's the most important, what is the conflict there, what is the timeliness of it, what is the magnitude, the prominence of it, the impact that it will have to your audience. Is it something emotional, oddity? So you're trying to pull the most important elements out of that news story, the most important. You get a fact pattern. There's a lot of things in a fact pattern that I'll give you like in the next exercise that may not really be important enough for you to put in the lead. So don't put it in the lead. Don't fall for the trap. Put the most important things up front. This is the most bedrock, difficult part of the news writing. Once you get the lead and the bridge, everything else kind of just falls into place. In the next module, learning module, we'll talk about quotes and direct quotes and how to do that and how to finish the rest of the story. But again, this was that review of the leads, how to do the bridge. When you do your next exercise, please make sure 1 sentence leads. 1 sentence leads. Try to answer the who, what, where, when, why, and how, if they're there present in the story, to put them in that one sentence, 30 words or less. It is not a headline. It is an actual news story. News sentence that should be grammatically correct. Less than 30 words or less. Count your words. Make sure you have it correct. Make sure you put the most important things in the lead. It's the first sentence in your news story, the first paragraph in your news story. Thank you very much for listening. And we'll follow up with the next module, which will begin to talk about direct, indirect quotes and attribution. Thank you.